there, folks, and welcome to our final episode for the season of Pinal Prep Spotlight, brought to you by Jones Ford Buick GMC, your hometown dealer for more than 50 years. This is our last show. Unfortunately for us, we have reached the end of the road. All of our baseball and softball teams were eliminated last week. Track will still be happening this week, but we don't really know how this works, because last week was our divisional championships for each conference division in track, and the winners of those automatically qualify for the state meet, which is the open meet pretty much for everybody, but we could have a couple more. But anyways, that is besides the point, because that's all convoluted and complicated. But looking back at our other spring sports, with baseball, softball, boys volleyball, we had a pretty big year, and we're just going to wrap everything up for you guys. David, just what were, some of your biggest surprises, most memorable moments, and things that stood out for you this season?
Well, I'm going to start with giving credit to some of our boys volleyball competitors out of Maricopa for their great year this year. This team has only been around for 2 years, and they have definitely shown that they are able to compete with almost anybody. I mean, yes, they did unfortunately fall in the first round in a sweep against Mesa Mountain View, but this team is definitely on the rise. They were a young group. They only had, I think, 1 or 2 seniors on this team this year, and they have a really solid stacked junior core that has come into virtually with no experience in volleyball before, and now have just been, they look like really solid players for this team. I was definitely surprised when I was out there in Mesa covering them, and I'm really excited for what we can see. We don't really have a lot of other boys volleyball competitors out here. Maricopa is really the only one that we have, and they are definitely someone to keep an eye on. I think they could easily, find a way to try to squeak past the play-in round next year with a higher seed, maybe, if they find the right pieces and they continue to be coached really well. And this team was definitely a good one to look out for. I really like what they were doing, and they got over that play-in hump. They always thought there was kind of like a play-in curse a little bit between the boys and the girls volleyball team, but this year they were able to do it with the boys and get to a good game. They were able to kind of have some mix and matching moments in that volleyball match against Mountain View, but they just weren't able to stop the big point runs that Mountain View was able to go on. So I'm going to give credit to Mountain View, and then a little bit of a disappointment I got to mention is just some Santa Cruz softball. And it was unfortunate that we saw them go out this way, because we always thought this was definitely a team that could compete for a championship, and I still think they can. This is still a really, like we say it all the time, they're still really young. They still have a lot of great pieces, but they're going to have to figure out who's going to be the next people up. Raylan Tarango was a senior this year. She was the main #1 pitcher for the team throughout her tenure, but now she's going to be moving on. And they still have a good young core, and it's just going to be another year where they have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. And this was always the question. Whenever they get to the playoffs, it comes down to, can they stack up against some of these big, tougher teams in 2A, because they're always going to be able to win their region. They don't face, a lot of tough teams when the regular season schedule comes out. So it's going to come down to, can they get that real good experience of finding these really tough teams to play in the 2A playoff format and find a way to push through and possibly get another title. I still think this team is the best softball team that we have in the county, and Andrea James is one of the best coaches out there, so I still have a lot of confidence in this team. It's just going to be back to the drawing board in the offseason and looking forward to another year in the next season.
All right, so with me being a softball girl, I got to continue on with David here. For me, Santa Cruz ran into a really difficult team in Benson. Although Benson, like I mentioned last week, they had that long length of break. However, Santa Cruz really battled for them. They went back and forth until, unfortunately, Benson did capitalize the most on Santa Cruz's errors, whereas Santa Cruz, just eventually just couldn't keep up with them offensively. But still, like David mentioned, a really solid team coming up for the next couple of years. And also, other teams, kind of in this mix is Coolidge. I've talked about Coolidge. I'm a big Coolidge fan. Especially their young pitcher, Salisha Slushy Herrera, has been phenomenal for them. Defense was the biggest question mark, but in speaking with head coach Dan Alleman, these girls are already past that basic point of trying to figure out, what to do, how the game works and everything. Now it's just taking things up another level and just trying to hone in on those skills and just capitalize on how to make this game simpler and everything for them. On the baseball side, Santan Foothills was our last team standing. They ran into a really difficult contest going up against the #1 seed in Chandler Valley Christian. It seems like Chandler Valley Christian is just our Achilles heels for most of our Pinal County teams here, whether that's boys basketball or any other sports. However, Santan Foothills had a phenomenal season. Another up-and-coming team, kind of their bounce back. They made it to the state tournament pretty much really deep back in the mid 2010s around there, 2018, 2019. Kind of hard to figure out when all the years kind of start combining together, but still, nevertheless, really fun year for us here at Pinal County. Just spring seasons, I've always said, our Pinal County sports shine brightest on the diamond. While our teams didn't get those deep postseason runs, that still isn't any different with how many teams we had competing overall. 12 teams in the play-in round, and then 2 extra ones that got the bye. So I think we did pretty good this season. David, anything else you would like to add?
Pinal County is still, it's insanely talented. It wasn't just a great spring season. It was a great year all around. We had some really solid football competitors. Basketball was huge for us. We saw a lot of great teams as well. Baseball, softball is usually, like you said, is going to be the sports that shine the brightest for us. So this is some really talented groups that go to these schools, and we're going to see a lot more coming in the future. So just be looking out for next season. We still got a whole bunch. We'll be here again, and we're ready to bring it to you.
All right, and with that does it for us. Be sure to tune in back to Pinal Prep's Friday night spotlight. There we go, because we are going to be kicking things off with football.